Welcome to the Sensory Life. My name is Mel. Let's submit for reimbursement together. This is my organizational binder for the year. If you are struggling to find a system that makes managing ESA documents simple, you can purchase this binder system on our Shopify store. If you already have a binder and just need the templates, they are also available on Shopify as a digital download. Keep everything as organized as possible because it's easy to get behind on reimbursement submissions. I created these charts with 4 sections in mind. Let's review them. The first section has an area for the date, the vendor name, and item description. The next section is the purchase section, where I input the amount paid and if I was given a receipt, whether in person or an emailed receipt that I can print. If no receipt was provided, then I'll check Create, which reminds me to reach out to the vendor and either request a receipt, or if one is not offered, I can create my own with a simple template that contains all the required information for ESA. If using this option, make sure to provide the vendor with the receipt. I called ESA customer service to ask about this option and was told that best practice is to ask the vendor to sign the receipt. That way it confirms all the information on it is accurate. Always make sure you have the documents required in case your account gets audited. The third section is the most important part as far as keeping track of what is required for submission. It's crucial to remember that the following documents listed must be submitted with every applicable reimbursement transaction. The first column is for the attestation form. I would check this box if I'm working with an accredited business. I'll need to upload a signed attestation form from the vendor, which states that the employees have at a minimum a high school diploma. These forms can be printed from the Arizona Department of Education's website or by clicking the link in the description box of this video. You'll find a blank attestation form in the ESA Parent Handbook. Moving on, we have the column for statement, invoice, and receipt. If I have any of those documents, then I'll put a check mark and then right next to it, I'll write which ones I submitted. You're probably wondering why I have receipts in the previous section, and that's simply because each section is a standalone organizer. I'm checking the receipt box when I've actually uploaded it into ClassWallet. Credentials is if I'm working with a vendor that does not have a business. For example, we used to have a tutor that I would submit service fees for reimbursement and would include a copy of her teaching credentials. If she had a business, I could use the attestation form instead of credentials. Honestly, I submit everything I have, so if I have a swim instructor's credentials from our swim school, I'll submit that along with the attestation form for the business. Redundant? Yes, but I would rather give everything I have and get approved the first time than stick to the bare minimum and risk having a transaction denied if I forgot something. If the item purchased requires a curriculum, then I check this box when I attach the document in ClassWallet. Evaluation is for special education kids if you need to attach documentation that an item is necessary for a child's educational disability. For example, if an occupational therapist recommends an item for your child, they can write a letter with the recommended items to get it approved through ESA. The next column is for the order ID number. This number is important in case you need to contact ESA customer service to find out the status of a reimbursement. Customer service will request this number to quickly retrieve the accurate transaction. On a side note, I thought ESA customer service was unable to find our transaction without the order ID number, but I recently called with several IDs to review with the purchasing department. I let them know I had all the numbers, but asked out of curiosity if they could see my transactions. The worker said, "That's a good question, let me see." He did a quick search on his end and he had all of my transactions in front of him without me providing the ID numbers. Just in case, I would always write down this number so you can quickly reference transactions when working with ESA customer service. This last section is for our approved information. When a transaction is approved, you will receive 2 emails for that same transaction stating that the item was approved and funds will be in your account soon. When I receive that email, I cross-reference that the order number on my chart matches the approval number in the email. Then I check the approved box. In my experience, from the time I receive that email, it takes about 2 to 3 days to see the money come into my personal bank account. That email triggers a countdown for me of roughly when I can expect to see those funds again. That was a quick overview of the reimbursements and transactions worksheet. Now, let's input reimbursements. I start with the date that I input the transactions. Today is July 22nd, and the reason I write in today's date as opposed to the purchase date on the receipt is that sometimes I have several receipts that need attention. If I made a purchase in the month prior, it can become confusing writing down the purchase date, especially when it can take a few weeks to be reimbursed. And since the receipt has the purchase date on it already, I don't feel the need to document it here. Next, I write down the vendor name. If I write small enough, I can usually fit the item or items purchased in this box. This purchase was made through Amazon for a bingo sight word game. The amount was $19.99, and I printed the receipt, so I add a check mark here under receipt. I can now input this transaction into ClassWallet. I start by clicking on Start a New Reimbursement, then I enter the store or vendor name and the amount of the transaction. I scan in my receipt and upload it. Adjust the image if needed, making sure everything is clear. I always get the error message that my document is not clear, even though I can see that it is. As long as it's visible to me, I'm just going to go ahead and bypass that message. Going back to my chart, this item would fall under the category of games, which are reimbursable under the supplemental with no documentation category. So all I need to do in this section is check the small box here. I do not need to upload any other documents from this section, so I can click Next. Choose the purse you want to be reimbursed from. Under how much of your total would you like ESA to cover, you enter the full amount, and that's the amount that you input initially. This transaction is $19.99, so that amount automatically populates. If this number does not match the original amount entered, you will not be able to move past this screen. Choose your expense category. This transaction falls under supplemental with no documentation needed. Now click Next. And that's it, one transaction down. Before we move on to the next transaction, show your appreciation and support for the work that we do here at The Sensory Life to bring you these ESA tutorials. By clicking the subscribe button, you're telling us you want to see more videos just like this. This next transaction is also an Amazon transaction, but this time it's for a digital timer. The amount was $21.06, and I printed the receipt, so I'll put a check here. I'll quickly move over to ClassWallet and start another reimbursement request. Just like before, by clicking on Start a New Reimbursement, I'll enter the store name and the amount of the transaction. My receipt was previously scanned, so I'll upload it and adjust the image if needed. Going back to my chart, this item is on the approved purchase list, so the category would be supplemental with no documentation. I'll check the box for my records, then back on ClassWallet. Since I do not need to upload any other documents from this section, I can click Next. Choose the purse you want to be reimbursed from. Under how much of your total would you like ESA to cover, I'm going to make sure that the full amount of this transaction, which is $21.06, is already populated. The category is supplemental with no documentation, then click Next. Another submission is complete. Here's a transaction for the vendor, Hubbard Swim School. The amount is $66.30, and they email me a receipt every month that I save to my computer. Under the submission section, I know I will need an attestation form because they are an accredited business. They also provide me with an invoice every month that I'll be uploading to ClassWallet. So I'll check here and write invoice followed by receipt after I upload them. I have our swim instructor's credentials as well, so while it's not necessary to include them, since I'm referencing the business attestation form, I'll still upload it simply because I have it, not because I need to. When I'm done inputting transactions, I make sure to go back into ClassWallet and click on the 3 lines in the upper left-hand corner. Scroll down to Manage Orders. This screen will show you all of your order ID numbers under the Purchase Order section. Write down these numbers next to their corresponding transaction on your worksheet, just in case. ESA rules can change at any time. If there are any corrections that need to be made after this video was created and released, you're going to find those corrections in the description box, so take a look just to make sure. Click on these links for more tutorials. This is the Sensory Life.